The final throne room scene in Game of Thrones is one of the most visually striking and emotionally layered moments ever produced by HBO, and its deeper meaning often goes unnoticed at first glance. When the ruins of King's Landing are covered in ash, many viewers initially interpret it as snow, creating a haunting parallel between destruction and silence. This visual confusion is intentional, reinforcing the idea that what looks pure and peaceful may actually be the result of catastrophic violence. The setting alone tells a story of how absolute power ultimately consumes everything around it. As Daenerys Targaryen approaches the Iron Throne, the scene frames her as both a conqueror and a tragic figure. The Dragonfire that destroyed the city becomes a symbol of her transformation, marking the moment she fully embraces her identity as a ruler who believes her actions are justified, regardless of the cost. The throne room, once a place of ambition and political intrigue, becomes a silent witness to the consequences of unchecked ideology. The presence of ash drifting through the air mirrors earlier prophetic visions seen in the House of the Undying, subtly connecting past and present. This continuity suggests that Daenerys' fate was not sudden, but rather a culmination of choices and beliefs that had been building for years. The scene reinforces the idea that destiny in this world is not predetermined, but shaped by the character's own decisions. When Jon Snow enters the throne room, the tension shifts dramatically. His perspective contrasts with Daenerys, as he represents a more grounded and morally conflicted view of leadership. The visual framing places him in the shadow of destruction, emphasizing the burden he carries as someone who must confront the consequences of someone he once trusted and loved. The Iron Throne itself becomes more than just a seat of power. It transforms into a symbol of everything that has gone wrong in Westeros. Forged from the swords of defeated enemies, it has always represented conquest and domination. In this moment, however, it also represents illusion, the false promise that ruling from it can bring justice or peace. The lighting in the scene plays a crucial role in shaping its meaning. The dim, almost ethereal glow creates an atmosphere that feels both sacred and ominous, as if the throne room has become a place of judgment. This reinforces the idea that the moment is not just about political power, but about moral reckoning. Daenerys' speech about breaking the wheel gains a new layer of irony in this setting. Surrounded by destruction, her vision of liberation appears distorted, raising the question of whether her methods have simply created a new version of the same cycle she sought to destroy. The scene challenges the audience to reconsider the meaning of justice in a world driven by power. Jon's internal conflict is reflected in his body language and hesitation. He is not just facing a ruler, but confronting the collapse of an ideal. His journey throughout the series has been defined by duty and honor, and this moment forces him to reconcile those values with the reality in front of him. The silence in the throne room amplifies every movement and expression, making the scene feel almost timeless. It's as if the world itself pauses to witness the outcome of this confrontation, emphasizing its importance not just for the characters, but for the entire narrative. Ultimately, the Dragonfire that destroyed King's Landing serves as a metaphor for the destructive nature of absolute conviction. The scene reveals that the greatest threat is not power itself, but the belief that one's actions are beyond question. In that sense, the throne room becomes a graveyard of ideals as much as it is a physical ruin. One of the most emotionally charged and symbolically rich moments in Game of Thrones comes immediately after the death of Daenerys Targaryen, when Drogon enters the throne room and discovers her lifeless body. The scene unfolds with an almost sacred stillness, broken only by Drogon's anguished cries. His reaction is not that of a simple beast, but of a creature capable of profound grief and awareness. The way he nudges Daenerys, as if trying to wake her, adds a heartbreaking layer to the moment, emphasizing the depth of their bond. Drogon's grief quickly transforms into rage, but what makes the scene remarkable is how that rage is directed. Instead of immediately turning on Jon Snow, who stands just feet away, Drogon pauses. This hesitation is crucial. It suggests a level of perception that goes beyond instinct. In that moment, the dragon appears to assess the situation, as though understanding that Jon, while responsible, is not the root cause of Daenerys' fate. The decision to destroy the Iron Throne rather than kill Jon is one of the most debated creative choices in the series. However, when viewed through a symbolic lens, it becomes clear that Drogon is targeting what the throne represents rather than who physically committed the act. The throne embodies centuries of ambition, betrayal, and bloodshed. It is the object that has driven countless individuals, including Daenerys, toward destructive ends. Drogon's flames engulf the throne in a slow, deliberate motion, melting the swords that once symbolized conquest. This is not an act of blind fury. It feels almost purposeful, as though the dragon is erasing the very concept that led to his mother's downfall. The visual of the throne collapsing into molten metal is both satisfying and tragic, marking the end of an era defined by violence and domination. The intelligence of dragons in Game of Thrones has always been hinted at, but this moment solidifies it. Drogon's action implies that he can interpret human behavior and its consequences. He does not simply react. He responds in a way that aligns with the deeper themes of the story. This elevates him from a weapon of destruction to a character with agency and symbolic significance. Another layer to this scene is the idea that Drogon recognizes the corrupting influence of power. Throughout the series, the pursuit of the throne consistently leads characters down darker paths. Daenerys, who once sought to liberate the oppressed, ultimately becomes consumed by her belief in her own righteousness. Drogon's destruction of the throne can be seen as an acknowledgement of this transformation and a rejection of it. Jon Snow's survival further reinforces this interpretation. If Drogon were acting purely on instinct, Jon would likely have been his first target. Instead, the dragon spares him, suggesting an understanding that Jon's actions, while tragic, were motivated by a desire to prevent further suffering. This distinction highlights the moral complexity at the heart of the scene. The absence of dialogue during this sequence is a deliberate choice that enhances its impact. Without words, the audience is forced to interpret the meaning through visuals and emotion. The crackling fire, the collapsing metal, and Drogon's mournful cries create a powerful sensory experience that lingers long after the scene ends. The destruction of the Iron Throne also serves as a narrative reset. For the entirety of Game of Thrones, the throne has been the ultimate goal, the prize that justified wars and betrayals. By removing it from the equation, the story opens the door to a new way of thinking about leadership and governance, one that is not centered on a single seat of power. There is also a poetic irony in how the throne is destroyed. Forged by Dragonfire during Aegon's conquest, it is ultimately undone by the same force. This cyclical imagery reinforces the idea that the systems built on violence are destined to collapse under their own weight. Fire, which once created the throne, becomes the instrument of its end. Drogon's final act of carrying Daenerys' body away adds another layer of ambiguity. Where he takes her is left unknown, but the image suggests a retreat from the world of men and their endless for power. It is as if Drogon is removing the last trace of that destructive cycle, taking it somewhere beyond the reach of politics and ambition. The scene also invites viewers to reconsider who, or what, is truly responsible for that unfold. While individuals make choices, they are often influenced by larger systems and symbols. The throne, as a representation of absolute, exerts a gravitational pull that shapes behavior in profound ways. By destroying it, Drogon symbolically breaks that influence. From a thematic perspective, this moment encapsulates one of the central messages of the series, that the pursuit of power for its own sake leads to ruin. Drogon's action is not just an emotional response, but a statement about the futility of that pursuit. It suggests that true change requires not just new leaders, but the dismantling of the systems that perpetuate conflict. The visual storytelling in this scene is masterful. The contrast between the fiery destruction of the throne and the cold stillness of Daenerys' body creates a striking juxtaposition. It highlights the tension between life and death, creation and destruction, hope and despair, all of which are central to the narrative. In many ways, Drogon becomes the final arbiter of the story's moral lesson. While humans are caught in cycles of ambition and justification, the dragon, often seen as a symbol of chaos, delivers a moment of clarity. His choice transcends politics, focusing instead on the root cause of suffering. The aftermath of the throne's destruction leaves a void that must be filled by something new. Without the throne, the characters are forced to confront the reality that power cannot be concentrated in the same way it once was. This shift, while uncertain, represents a departure from the and a step toward a different future. Ultimately, Drogon's decision transforms the throne room scene from a personal tragedy into a broader commentary on power, legacy, and responsibility. It elevates the moment beyond the fate of individual characters, turning it into a reflection on the systems that shaped their world. In the end, the destruction of the Iron Throne is not just the conclusion of a storyline. It is the culmination of everything Game of Thrones has been building toward. Through fire and grief, the series delivers its final message, that the true enemy was never a single person, but the idea of the throne itself.